let's start right off the bat with a rate. So again, if you use something like this skosh that went on down here on an arm, you got an iWatch, there are devices out there where you can see on it or on your phone, you can see a number. And that number might change at points in time, or you're just sitting around, or if you're laying down, or if you're standing, whatever it is that you're doing, okay? And let's use blue. So rates are something like, for example, 61, I'll do that in black too, 61. And I'll go back to my initial analogy, which is that heart rate, any kind of rate, you can relate back to something that maybe you have more experience with. So what I mentioned last time, miles per hour, is think of the speedometer on your favorite video game, on your car, on your motorized bike, on your motorcycle. If it says 61 on the dashboard and nothing else changes inside the car or outside the car that can affect the car, that 61 will just happen and it won't change. What does 61 miles per hour mean? It means that you have, or you will, excuse me, again, it's an instantaneous rate. So right now, if nothing changes, you will go 61 miles in 1 hour. So it's a number of events, 61 miles, passing a mile marker 61 times in 1 hour. You could have a heartbeat when you're sitting down right here. This is a pretty common one, 61 beats per minute. So again, if nothing changes on the inside of you and nothing changes on the outside of you, your heart will beat 61 times in 1 minute once you start counting that minute out. So that's a good way to think about rates. There is another way to think about, and so we'll come back to this in a second, but it's not another way to think about rates. Sorry, it is a inverse of this, which is something called the frequency domain, and it's pretty intuitive. It is essentially the idea of, instead of asking how many miles do I cover in 1 hour, it would be the inverse of that, which is how much time does it take to do a mile, or how much time does it take to have your heart beat? Because, and I'll give you a quick example, if you had a 60 mile per hour on your dash, that would mean pretty much every minute you covered a mile, there's 60 minutes in an hour, and you've covered 60 miles in that hour. If you're going a little bit faster, 61 miles per hour, then you can already tell that chances are that the amount of time it takes you to go a mile is a little bit less than a second, because you're going to cover 1 more mile in that hour than you would if you were going 60. So it takes a little bit less time. If it makes it easier with a bigger number, think if you did 120 miles an hour, awesome, I would love to do that, then you are actually covering a mile every half a second. So again, that time to do a mile changed. It got less because your speed is more. That's called the frequency domain if you're thinking about that sort of time to do an event. And we'll come back to that because that matters for heart rate variability in terms of what people think it actually measures, which may or may not be true, but is talked about quite frequently. Okay, so remember, these are instantaneous rates if nothing happens. There can also be an average rate, which is now I've set the bounds of the time, and I basically said, we're going to start now, I'm going to measure for a minute, and you've done this version possibly where you hold your fingers next to your artery here in your neck, you start a timer, and that would tell you that if you actually had 61 beats in a minute, that's an average now heart rate because you average 61 beats for that minute, and your nurse, your PA, your doctor is thinking that if nothing else happened, that would stay pretty much the average going forward. So average is used once you actually have a set amount of time. Instantaneous is for each individual number that you see. And those individual numbers build up to an average once you decide, I'm done counting, I'm going to move on from here.